Okay, I think we're live.
Nice.
All right, so I want to welcome everyone to the VertiMax VIVE podcast. I'm Steve Leo. I'm going to be the host for today. On the call, I have Casey Lee. He's up in beautiful Vermont. I'm going to let him give a quick intro, and then we'll kind of get into the podcast. So, Casey Lee, why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's awesome to be here today. Like you said, my name is Casey Lee. I'm the Director of Fitness and Performance up in Northern Vermont at a health club called The Edge. We're also the home of the Parisi Speed School, the reigning franchise of the year. No big deal. I'll just put that in there. But yeah, we train athletes. We train Gen Pop clients. We work with everyone from age 7 all the way up to in their 70s, I think, is our oldest individual who trains with us. We've got about 20, I just did the math on this, 26 trainers at the health club. We have 4 performance coaches out of the Parisi Speed School.
Cool. And you oversee all of that, right? You oversee the health club personal training and the performance training, right?
Yeah, it's almost synonymous terms for us as far as Parisi and the health club with Parisi. We cohabitate. We have a 35,000 square foot indoor turf field. Parisi has about 5,000 square feet of that. Right now, we have kind of the whole area set up as a fitness center with 5,000 square feet of empty turf alongside the Parisi facility. We reopened earlier this month, and we're very lucky to have the indoor space, and we're very lucky to have a very social distant facility to train out of right now, which is great.
That's awesome. And I want to get into that too, because I'm sure everyone is going through that right now. When it comes to, coming out of Corona and, obviously I'm in New Jersey right now. We're still not open. All the gyms still haven't opened up yet. Other parts of the country I know have opened. You've been open for about a month. So I want to get into that. Before I do you want to give us a little bit of your background, how you pretty much got into the training business, where you went to school, what you studied, and kind of that type of route that you've taken?
Yeah, so I would say it's probably a non-traditional route. I went to college at SUNY Plattsburgh in upstate New York. I was a business major. There was no exercise science when I enrolled there. There was no kinesiology or anything like that. And then my second year going into my junior year, SUNY Plattsburgh launched what they call the Health Wellness Leadership Major, but it was a 4-year program, and I had no interest in restarting 2 years of college, nor did I have the money to do that. So I stuck with the business route. I opted to really just dive into personal training and got a job at the fitness center on campus, where they paid for my certification through AFA at the time, which was awesome when you're a broke college kid looking for anything you can get. But it really gave me a ton of experience training professors, working with athletes. It taught me how to network really early on, which was great. And then when I graduated, I really wasn't ready for that kind of, I say, like the party to stop, because training was a lot of fun. And I kind of realized that I could probably make a pretty decent career out of it. And it brought a lot of perks as far as coming from Northern Vermont and wanting to stay home in Northern Vermont. The fitness scene isn't like what most metropolitan areas are like. So it gave me an opportunity to stay home. And luckily, I literally think it was luck, I graduated in May. The health club that I was working for was looking into opening Parisi in June. So I graduated on a Saturday. On Sunday, I got on a plane and flew to Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and was very lucky. The first probably major continuing education thing that I had done was with Martin Rooney, Bill Parisi, John Cirillo, and we spent a whole week at Fair Lawn just watching those guys train. It was the same year as the NFL lockout, and there's a ton of pro guys there training, and it was just an unreal experience. And I think I really credit that week into setting the bar as to what high level sports performance looks like, and have been very fortunate to kind of work my way from a performance coach that trained exclusively 7, 8, 9-year-olds to the guy that oversees the entire operation and kind of has his hands in a lot of different things, which makes it exciting.
No, that's great. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of people that could say that they may have not been an exercise science major. And, I go back and forth with it. I was an exercise science major, but I also dabbled in business as well. And I think there's a lot of people that may have taken that route and gone into coaching. And, I've known quick waiver here. I've known Casey for about 10 years now, and I've seen him come up as probably one of the top coaches in the country that I've seen at his age. I mean, at a young age, he was engaging. He knew what he wanted to do. He went and did the research, even though, like you said, you weren't technically a ex-phys major. And I think that's important, but I also think there's times where, if you're just hungry to learn, you can become a great coach. And that's what you've done. You've gone, like you said, a non-traditional route from just being a trainer. Now you're overseeing a monster sports / health club. I mean, it's like I said, it's huge. You have a Parisi Training, you have a turf, and you have a huge health club, and there's 2 health clubs in the area that you guys have. So I think it's impressive, how quickly you've grown through the ranks.
I would tell everyone, and I have this conversation with our students a lot when they graduate or they're looking into colleges and they're interested in what we do, because it's pretty cool. Like I would say, like I have a pretty cool job, like, working in sports performance, working in health and fitness, but there's so many complementary pieces to sports performance or health and wellness. My concentration, my true background is in analytics and statistics. So it really helped me read research, really helped me understand research and what publications were really putting out and kind of how to decipher through some of the BS that you may see. But it kind of helped me understand and appreciate the business side of it, which has helped me grow and really stick in this profession as well. So a lot of complementary pieces I always tell our kids to look at, because there's so many things you can do in the world that we live in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I think the bottom line is, a lot of people may not realize what we do. A lot of people think we're trainers, right? We're personal trainers, which we do manage that. But I really look at all of us as coaches, right? We're just coaching in a private setting. We're not coaching, say, at a school or a club team or anything like that. And I think that's the biggest piece that I think a lot of people should know is if you love the coach, you can get into performance coaching. I think it's pretty important for people to understand that. Kind of shifting gears, because we had a question pop up and I'm sure everyone is asking about it. How are you handling the return, the return to play, return to training, and how do you feel? One of the questions is, do you find if people are eager to return or a little hesitant? What have you experienced? Because you've been open now about 3 weeks, which is ahead of probably most of the states in the country.
Yeah, so I've been kind of taking notes on this, because we, as the Parisi network starts to reopen, a lot of people have been really interested in what it looks like. There's 2 things that I've really noticed. One is there's no one in the middle. You're either ready to go and you don't care what the health requirements are. You're ready to go. I want to get back in the gym. There's that person. And then the other side is the person that they're not ready. They're really sticking with the virtual, and they're probably at the point where you need to talk to them about how to accommodate how they feel as far as leaving their house, what they have at home, but really understanding that you're still able to coach them. Just because someone doesn't want to come back to the gym doesn't mean they don't want to give up on their health and fitness. They don't want to give up on their sports performance, whatever it may be. So it's really our job to make sure that we're accommodating them and how they feel, because, in a sales role, I'm not forcing people to come to the gym. I'm not telling people their membership is done if they can't make it into a certain time frame for a session. So it's making sure you can accommodate those on both ends. And then also the people that are really the people that are really eager to come in, making sure that they respect the rules in place and the policies and new operating procedures you may have. The second piece that I found as far as reopening and traffic flow coming in is you'll know really quick when you open if you have a transactional business or if you have a relationship business. Us in Vermont, we're very lucky that it's a very community-driven environment. And as far as our youth athletes coming in, we have a lot of trust with our families, a lot of trust with our parents to make sure their kids are safe. As a father myself, and you appreciate this too, Steve, as a dad, if my daughter's going to run around on that turf, it better be safe. It better be pretty spot on with the people operating on that turf as well. So we've been very lucky that we do have a strong relationship business. But I would tell everyone as they start to reopen that you'll know real quick where your business stood when you shut down, and you have a restart button to really improve on that as you reopen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big point I'm going to take from that is, like you talked about relationships. I think I believe in our business, relationships is the most important thing. I think anyone can do marketing, social media, all of that stuff can be done. You can hire people now to do that. But the bottom line is you have to have good relationships. And like you said, if you didn't have good relationships prior to the quarantine, and now people are starting to come back, like you said, you're going to know right away. Also, too, what do you think you guys did well during the quarantine to kind of maintain those relationships? I know a lot of people did virtual training, and some people made phone calls, did some outside training. What type of things did you do, and do you think it worked? Or did you think anything had maybe a negative or positive effect on the return?
Yeah, I think we did, like most, we did virtual sessions. But what we did that I thought was really different, and I don't think it was groundbreaking by any means, but we did twice a week. We did I say coaching calls or just development calls. Like we did calls with our athletes that were centered around professionals that complemented sports performance, whether it was our mental skills coach, a registered dietitian, if it was myself talking about behavioral change and helping people adapt to their new habits and routines. We did these calls that were centered around helping our athletes become better athletes in a true form, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and helping them through this period where everything was flipped upside down for them. Their routines were tossed. They weren't able to perform in kind of their element in their sports. Their seasons were canceled. So I think that was something we did really well. As far as the return, it kept our athletes engaged kind of in a different way. And I think there's something to appreciate with that because they couldn't train the way they were accustomed and they were used to. We're talking about 12 to 17-year-olds with very little context in how life operates. So their whole life has been practice, games, train. And then it was, you don't get to practice, there's no games, and you actually don't get to train the same way you wanted to. So to have this other new thing in their life that was something to look forward to twice a week was awesome. And it kept our athletes engaged. It allowed us to network with other professionals that we may not necessarily have really thought to network with. And it was very rewarding. I enjoyed it. We still do them, which is great. That's how I know. I think it was something that kind of stuck. Was something we're still doing as we reopen. We do them virtually, and we're going to eventually, once our capacity and health restrictions allow, with mass gatherings and things like that, we'll do them in person as well.
Yeah, that's something I want to expand upon. Do you think? I know we've talked in the past on the phone, but do you think now virtual training is here to stay in some form since everything was right here?
For sure. I think traditional remote training or online coaching was something that people did. Now, obviously, everyone is doing it, but in its true sense, I think it's more, here's a program, go follow it, and you're probably someone with a decent training age. But I think that the idea of remote training or virtual, whatever, like a live session, that's something that's absolutely here to stay. It would be, I think what I say, it'd be silly to not do it, but it'd be silly to just jump into that and not respect your in-person training as well. So finding a happy medium is something that I think every coach needs to be doing right now. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to help accommodate people. It's going to make your business more bulletproof for whatever may be down the road. But it's a way to, if you have a capacity problem or a capacity restriction rather, if I can only put 8 kids in a class, but I can throw up a live stream and have a kid at home in their home gym or with whatever equipment they may have, now all of a sudden I can take that capacity from 6, 8 athletes all the way up to almost infinite because there's 100 people that can fit in a Zoom webinar. So that's something that's just a good resource to be exploring right now, and obviously making it fit for your business and how you train is important. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it's here to stay, and I think that those that are really smart are going to figure out how to complement it really well with what they're doing in person.
Yeah, I think it's here to stay too. I think it's going to be something that people are going to have part of their package of services now, where you have personal training or team training. I think it's going to be something like that. And also, too, I don't know if this has happened, but are there people that you've engaged with that said, hey, we're not ready to return back to the gym, but we'd still be open to doing virtual training? Have you seen that trend at all?
Absolutely. Actually, I on my way in here to shut the door and whatnot, there was one of our coaches was in the corner with her laptop out, and she was coaching someone one-on-one, completely virtual. And then we have another coach who was using our training software to deliver remote programming for a semi-private group. So like I said, coaches, it'd be silly to not respect that avenue. I know it's not exactly the most enticing. Zoom fatigue is very real, but
I agree.
It's something that I think you got to do. And you don't have to make it a key part of your business model or anything like that. But it's something that we should always obviously know how to do pretty well, and you should have it into your system. So, like I said, you never know what's going to happen going forward, and you need to bulletproof your business the best you can.
I think that's a key term, right? Bulletproof your business. I mean, I think all of us as business owners or business managers have learned that in the last, 3 to 4 months. It's definitely changed my mindset, with the way I run my business. And obviously I'm outside now training, all red in the face from being in the sun. And but I've enjoyed it. I've actually enjoyed kind of doing something a little bit different, not being in a facility, being outdoors and on a track and on a turf. And I think that is here to stay, meeting people at locations, doing virtual training, and then traditionally being in your private facility, box gym, whatever you have. I think all that's going to be here. And then something else I wanted to touch upon, not many people know, you didn't mention it, but you were kind of the acting strength coach for a local college for a little while. You guys were contracted to come in and be a strength coach at a local school. Why don't you give us a little bit of that experience? I know you and I have talked about this in the past, but the difference between, being, say, an SSC coach in a collegiate setting or high school setting, which is what I do as well, and then also working in a private setting, because I think there are people that when they're on one side, they always want to check out the other, and some have done both. So why don't you kind of give your experiences with that?
Yeah. So for the last 4 years, we've been contracted, whether it be privately to start by individual teams at a local school, St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont, part of the NE10. It's a Division II program. And the NE10 is a pretty intense college setting. Like, it's a pretty competitive program, lots of high profile teams on the lacrosse setting, on the basketball setting, and then skiing as well, as actually Division I at that school. So we were contracted individually by teams, and then eventually that rolled into being contracted by the school as acting strength conditioning coaches while they were in the process of hiring their first on-campus strength coach, which was a lot of fun for us. Obviously working in a setting where it's all ages, where it's people paying to come in, going to a school and having teams scheduled to come in and train consistently twice a week, 3 times a week for 9 to 12 months, depending on the program, was just different. And it's kind of going into the coach's dream, so to speak, of here are the times the athletes are coming in. They have an unlimited meal plan on campus. They have access to a registered dietitian. They have access to a mental skills coach. And our job is to take them through just training. And it was a lot of fun. I definitely think that the downsides of being in college very rarely has to do with the training. For us, it was definitely like not being on campus and not knowing what events could be going on campus. So you always have those operational things to go through, but it was an unreal experience for us. We were, I say taken care of, because that's kind of like how we refer to ourselves as the strength coaches there. We were taking care of them physically for upwards to 300 athletes. I think it was like 281 athletes. We worked through with a company called Train Heroic on implementing that training program and making sure our athletes were able to access their training programs, whether it be at home during breaks. But when we were in their facility, we showed up, we prepped the weight room, team came in, we trained them, we talked to them about what they need to be doing afterwards, and teams were out. And it was like a true college setting. Coaches were in their offices. If we had any issues with athletes, we were talking to coaches. And then obviously talking with administration on any needs that they have. Steve, I'm not sure if there's anything specific with that, but it was definitely a change of pace from kids that may be here one week. Hey, I got pickup basketball this night, so I'm going to have to reschedule my appointment. Like, there was no rescheduling. Like if there was a snowstorm, all the kids were on campus and we were driving ourselves over there and making sure they were able to train. When it was nice out, we were on a field. When it was crummy, we were in a gym, but it was really different to see athletes and what they were able to accomplish, especially the teams that we had been with. We were able to see, when we started, those freshmen just graduated this past year. So we were actually able to see a full class all the way through, and just the progress year to year. It's super rewarding. That's what I think everyone gets into strength conditioning for, is to see athletes develop and see athletes grow, and to be able to see that at a high division collegiate level was extremely rewarding. The impact that we've had on those kids and just being able to stay healthy and play was, it's like the coach's dream. That's what you do it for.
Yeah, it's different, right? I mean, I told you, so I'm at a private high school and I'm the strength coach there. So a little different. They don't live there, but it's a different animal when you get to have the kids 6, 8, 9 months out of the year. There's pros and cons to it. I think you and I have talked about this in the past. And one of the questions Almarez has is, how are the kids prepping for the fall sports, not knowing what exactly is going to happen? And I think that's obviously going on for every level right now. It's youth, high school, and even college. How are you dealing with those kids that are coming? Because I'm assuming you probably have soccer, football, a lot of the fall sport athletes getting ready. What is their mental state like right now?
Yeah, actually, just the strength coach that was hired at the college where you were contracted at, I was just talking with him about this, because a lot of his athletes train with us to get ready, those that are local. And the big piece is obviously you got to control what you can control. Whether you're going to have a shortened season or shortened training camp, a longer training camp, captain's practices, because maybe your coach can't officially set something up, but captains can. What you control is what you need to be focusing on. And for us, whether you don't necessarily need fancy equipment to work on aerobic capacity. You don't need fancy equipment to work on some of the different pieces of qualities and training qualities that we coach every day, Steve, as far as relative stiffness and speed mechanics and strength maneuvers as far as relative strength. Getting creative with athletes to make sure they have materials at their house. But really the big piece, and I think this probably answers the question, is just educating athletes on what they need and what they don't need, and then having them be advocates for themselves. I was talking to one of our athletes this week. He's a Division I baseball player going to a school in the fall to play a pitcher, and he's playing baseball. And in Vermont, you can have the sports teams are open. It's non-contact and you can't scrimmage or anything like that. But baseball players is one of the sports that are able to play. And his coach is having him run pulls, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 lunges every practice, so every other day. And I would never tell an athlete to look at their coach and say no. But what I would tell an athlete is, hey, coach, why? And I think that's important, that these athletes know that they don't have to fall into the pressure of trying to catch up. I'll put quotes around catch up for the last 12 weeks or however many weeks it's been for an athlete to be inactive. I think a lot of coaches may be trying to catch up on 12 weeks of inactivity in the first week of practice, and that's not going to be a good recipe for success for anyone. So it's about educating athletes on how to be prepared, how to take advantage of their time away from their sport that they just had. And then making sure as they get ready for the fall that they're doing it in a sensible way. Saying, hey, the first 3-4 weeks may be slow, but the last 8 weeks will be what you're accustomed to. And then the fall will start. And hopefully this is a thing of the past and you forgot how you sat on your couch watching Netflix in March. But making sure athletes are really training the qualities that they can. Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to train absolute strength like you once could, but you can absolutely work on the capacity and the sports movements that will keep you relatively I won't say injury-free, but can mitigate a lot of overuse injuries that you may see or experience when sports start to ramp up and coaches are feeling a little bit of pressure of the inactivity.
Yeah, so, that being said, kids came back, about 3 weeks ago for you. How have the kids been when they've come back? I think one of my concerns is I've gotten a few kids that I've been working with, and as far as their strength levels, they've been okay because they were able to lift weights. But what I did notice right away is their work capacity, and with me with the speed endurance is really where they were struggling. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I would say it was kind of a decrease of everything across the board, and we knew that going. We were planning on that, yeah. So we told all of our athletes when they came back in, the first 10 days you're with us should not feel hard. Nothing should feel hard. If something feels hard, then we messed up. And the feedback that we're getting this week after last week is what we wanted. I won't say what we expected, but what we wanted with athletes that are saying, hey, it's too easy. It's too easy. We can up it. We can go up. We can, and we're going to gradually increase on them and work on capacity qualities as we go. But we told them, hey, it's not even the 4th of July yet. For us, that's kind of the benchmark in the summer. And once the 4th of July hits, that's when we want to really be looking at what fall training camps may be and what tests you may have to do when you show up to camp or whatever it might be. But we're going to make the first 10 days, the first 14 days really easy. And you're just going to have to punch the clock and show up and everything will fall in line. What's nice is our kids are typically pretty fit. They bounce back pretty quick, understanding that their strength qualities, their power production is probably what took the biggest hit, but their strength is going to come back as long as we do it right, and their capacity will come back. It's not going to be the most fun for them to work on those qualities, but like you're saying, their speed endurance was not what they were used to, but they felt that, which I think was really important for athletes to go, hey, I understand this is harder than it probably was for me in March and April, but I'm going to do the right thing, like you're saying, and I'm going to trust you. And it goes back to that relationship business that we're lucky to have and have worked for. And our athletes are going to trust us, which is really good. So we're able to just gradually ramp them up, I think, the way that they probably should be, and keep them out of the PT clinic down the hallway.
Yeah, we don't want to put them back there.
No, we don't want that. No.
We definitely saw that. The first time I started working with teams a few weeks ago, I had a couple of cross teams, and these kids came in, they looked good, they were kind of jacked up, and they've been lifting weights, and we did about 15, 20-minute good active warm-up and mobility work, and a little rough.
Gone.
They were hitting the wall pretty quick. It's gotten better. I've seen it getting better. Like you said, I think the power numbers are definitely down. The speed endurance numbers are definitely going to be down. I've been trying to remind, I don't know about you, but I've been trying to remind them, like, you guys have time now. Not that we want to waste time, but we have time. Typically, you wouldn't get kids early June, right? You wouldn't get them until maybe late June, early July. Because
after 4th of July, after 4th of July weekend. That's when we get our kids every year. And I think it's still true even this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Now it's the big crunch, right? Because the football and soccer, cross country, field hockey, things like that, if they get going, say, I don't know about Vermont, but I know in Jersey it's like middle of August is when everything hits. But all the teams will practice in the summer. Now they have a good 7-8 weeks to get ready for their season. And again, we don't know what's going to happen. The message I've been telling kids is you're going to train like you're having a normal season. If it gets delayed and gets pushed back, well, then you'll just be that much better, right? You'll have that much more time in. I think it's a mistake of the kids who wait. I think there are some parents who are just saying, well, we may not have a season. I'm not sure if I want to start working out. And my philosophy and advice has been just get out there and work, because at least you'll be ready for whatever's going to come your way. And nobody knows. I mean, this is what we're all dealing with. We're dealing with it as coaches. And I'm a father. I have daughters that compete. And, we're still trying to figure it all out. So I think that's what we got to do, right?
Yeah. Competition requires more than one person typically, but to train, you only need one person. So you can still do that.
Exactly. That's the thing with non-contact. They can do a lot of these things. What type of things that you've been using over the past, because you've been training, about 10 years now?
Yep.
All right. So over the past 10 years, what things have you been using that you feel have had some great benefits as far as working in the performance training world? Whether it be pieces of equipment, obviously, we're on here with VertiMax, something like that, or different training programs or philosophies, whatever you've seen over the last couple of years that, you really are happy that you have now that maybe you hadn't had, 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, and I know it's a VertiMax podcast, but I will say we have a VertiMax, we use a VertiMax, and the VertiMax falls into a category of equipment that we've appreciated, and it's the equipment that gives the feedback to an athlete on what you're trying to actually teach. So, for example, using VertiMax, it teaches an athlete how to actually push through the ground with their lower half. We typically, and I can say we'll use different implements, whether it's like the cables for like a type of push press, or if it's jump training, if it's some sort of like dynamic resistance. But the dynamic resistance of the VertiMax teaches an athlete how to actually push into the ground, which it sounds oversimplified, but we work with really young athletes that are going through a lot of physical development. So getting them in an environment that provides instant feedback is more valuable. And I've learned to really appreciate equipment that does the talking for me. You put them on a VertiMax, you give them a Viper cord, you give them something, a prowler sled, that if they're not pushing effectively, it doesn't really work as well. But it's also a low risk environment where they're not really going to hurt themselves, or the chance of injury is extremely low. I've learned to appreciate those. And then I've really, and it's been reaffirmed through the shutdowns, but I've really appreciated just the basics, just the relative strength. We work with athletes, like I just said, like they're younger athletes, and even our higher level athletes come in with sometimes just really low abilities with their own body. So whether it's a TRX for modified body weight training, whether it is body weight training or something that is relative to their size, I think that's been just tried and tested through 10 years. Like I look at what I did on day one as far as loaded carries, sled work, sprint work, dynamic speed work as far as band attachments. I don't say Olympic lift. We don't do a lot of Olympic lifting in our program, but we, med ball work, just these dynamic variables that help athletes learn how to move their body fast and put force into an object. That's something that we still do today, 10 years later, that other pieces have come and go, how much we use a barbell, how often we use other implements as far as strength training go. Like we had a strong fad with strongman training. I think probably my 4th year in, where everyone was flipping tires and carrying tires around. We don't really do that anymore. But we have invested significantly in a wall that we can throw medicine balls into. So, as far as the decade is gone, those are the things that have stood the test of time for us. And whether you're an adult, whether you're a kid, anyone can do it, and you're going to get performance benefits. I think once we really identified what our role is in sports performance and making sure that it's an athlete can move better on a field, it really changed our philosophy in saying, what do we really, like, how strong do you really need to be? And it's a very gray answer, strong enough. But for us, we don't necessarily need to chase a double body weight deadlift or a double body weight back squat. Like if you can't skip well, if you can't put force into an object, when you kick a soccer ball, when you sprint after a 50-50 ball, you're probably not going to be the first one there. So that's why you're training. You want to be the first person to every one of those loose balls. You want to be the person who can out jump the opponent for a rebound. And that's, once we were able to really identify that as our purpose in sports performance, we dramatically cut down the number of pieces of equipment we actually use.
Yeah, I think, I've gone through that too. Over 20 years, I've used everything under the sun. I've tried everything. And, obviously VertiMax has been one of the ones that has really stuck with me over the years. And it's gotten even better with the introduction of the Raptor now. And I mean, number one, the kids love it. I think the fact that it can give feedback, exactly what you're saying is what I do as well. It gives them feedback on they're not pushing the right way, or their hips aren't high, their posture's off. All of those things can be coached using it, and it's not such an overload that it's going to throw them off. And then also to go off your point about the strength training, listen, we're in an age now where you can go on social media and see 20 different gyms, 20 different facilities, lifting heavy weights, doing all kinds of crazy different movement patterns. And at the end of the day, I mean, you said it exactly the way I would say it is, can they go and get a 50-50 ball? Can they chase somebody down the field? I mean, that's the most important thing. And, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen it. You can have kids that walk in your building and may not look like they're a great athlete. All of a sudden you put them out there and they're flying around the gym. They're just flying all over the place. And they can't deadlift, they can't squat. And you're like, well,
something's going on. Something's going on. I don't want to mess that up.
Exactly.
Like someone walks in and you watch them run and you're like, whoa, okay. Like, I don't want to mess that up. And I actually think you can do more harm than good by getting someone too strong by chasing, a strength ratio. And up until 5 years ago, I would have told you that strength ratios was the most important thing. And I think it's important to have strength standards, but it's relative to the size of the athlete. If you're a 7-year-old, you have the same strength standard as our 17-year-olds. And if you're the 18-year-old that comes in and you can't hit that strength standard and you can fly around the field, then I think we definitely need to look at what you're doing a little closer, because there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's more of a one-off case. I don't think that's the norm.
No, and I think, listen, we're in a different world, right? We're working performance training. I'm a strength coach in a school. You've been a strength coach. And listen, at the end of the day, what is the title? The title is strength and conditioning coach. So their job is to get people strong. And there's a lot of great strength coaches do a phenomenal job at that. But, I agree with your point wholeheartedly about, are you getting too strong? You're trying to lift too much weights because, there, like you said, is there going to be a direct correlation with that deadlift going up 40 pounds and then running faster and jumping higher? And I know from my end, and I'm not sure if you agree, that doesn't always equate. It just doesn't always equate.
It doesn't. And I think it's an unpopular opinion. I get in a lot of fights with the trainers here at our own gym when we have that conversation. Like, why do we need to put 5 more pounds on the bar to get to 4 plates when the kid, it's, they're already over, whatever. Like, it's just not. There's just more harm than good at that point. And when you really have to look at the end result that you're trying to achieve, where the process fits in that is very important. It's not a popular opinion, but it's
no, listen,
I don't know. I stood the time test for us. And when our athletes are the fastest ones on the field, I don't know. That's what they want. So
well, that's what they're paying for, right? At the end of the day, that's what they're paying for. And for most sports, speed is one of the most important things for most sports, right? I'm not discounting training. I think strength training is important. It's really important. But I think you have to understand there's a bigger picture there. There's movement, which you and I talk a lot about, is teaching movement. And I think that's sometimes forgotten about, where we just want to we want to cram in as many drills or as many games or as many cone things as we can. And I think what we have to start getting back to the basics. And basics is the weird word for strength coaches and parents. I think, well, my kid's advanced, so why shouldn't you be doing advanced drills? Well, skipping might be advanced for that kid.
And Steve, I've heard you say this: the drill, or in this case, in the weight room, like the exercise isn't the outcome. The outcome is a movement quality, right? And that's what we're trying to do. Like the skipping is something that we're trying to elicit a very specific result from. It's not the end product. A good skip can be a good skip, but if it's not getting the hips into a good position, if it's not promoting frontside mechanics, why are you having them skip? Like what's the point of it? So that's something that I've taken from you, and we take that same philosophy into the weight room when we pick our exercise selection, which I think is probably the most important variable for any trainer or strength coach, is to just look at the exercises that someone's doing. What are we trying to get out of that? And the load very rarely is insignificant with what we're trying to get out of it. If anything, the load can be too much, but why are you doing it, and what result are you looking to get from it?
Yeah, at the bottom, I always say to the kids every day, or if I'm dealing with coaches, what's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish today? Like, if your job or your goal for that day is to try to condition them and run their guts out, okay, then that's fine. And that's what you're doing. Then go for it, and that's your main focus. If your job is speed work, then work on speed work. Like, I'm working with a collegiate soccer player right now, and of course, what does she need to be prepared for? A bazillion conditioning test. A mile run, 10 110s, one of the beep tests. And now I'm working with her, it's like crazy stuff. And I'm slowing things down in the beginning to teach mechanics. Even though she's a Division I collegiate soccer player, she's not a great sprinter per se. Soccer players, free footwork, right? They're so fast in a small area. But when you have to stretch them out and they have to change that gear, sometimes they can't do it. So we've taken some time breaking that down. And even after the first session, I could tell she was like, oh, that wasn't that hard. And I said, listen, the goal is not for it to be hard as far as breaking you down, but was it hard mentally? Could you understand it? And now they're getting it. And then what I think they don't realize is now I can ramp it up. I can make it more challenging. But it shouldn't always be challenging from a standpoint of you just running their guts out. I mean, listen, no offense, anybody can run their guts out. That's really not hard. But can you get a desired effect from it? So I think that's important. We had a cool question coming from IT. What are some of the mindset obstacles that you've had to overcome as you've grown in your craft as a coach? I guess that's an awesome question for someone like yourself.
Yeah, I think that professionally, it's imposter syndrome for myself. If I can just speak on what I felt, it's imposter syndrome. When you the very first time we walked into a team training scenario, I was 21. The athletes were older than me, and who the hell am I to tell them what to do, right? And I think that when you have that view in leadership, that your age and experience dictates your ability to lead, then you're already taken 4 steps backwards. And that's something that even to this day, as a 30-year-old, when I think of like, who am I to tell someone what to do? That was my problem, is I would frame it that way. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm offering suggestions based off my experience in education, and really viewing myself as a professional and valuing that was important to combat that kind of sense of imposter syndrome. The other mindset obstacles, like I find for most of our athletes, is, and kind of flipping the coin there with athletes that come to us, is it's confidence. And it's not necessarily confidence in themselves, because athletes, I think, inherently have confidence in themselves, but it's their ability for them to display that confidence in front of other people. And it's the idea of being a teammate rather than an individual. So we get a lot of field sport athletes, like soccer's huge in Vermont, basketball, lacrosse are huge in Vermont. These are great athletes that have to now show and display that attitude, if you will, or that mindset, but also as a great teammate. So when we work with our athletes, it's about interacting with the people that they're either training with, and putting them in environments to be leaders and lead with their colleagues and peers. But we have moved away from the idea of like building confidence. Yes, some athletes need to build confidence, and individuals who come with us need to build confidence. But at the same time, if you're not playing sports in general, if you don't have this base level of confidence, but it's how to display that in a team setting, that you don't feel bad about being yourself. And I think that's what's really changed as far as working with our athletes. And then that's really what I've kind of mindset wise for myself, just the sense of imposter syndrome as a coach, trying to lead individuals and make them better. Like, what makes me, the quote unquote authority to really help these people, and working through that with having, good mentors like you, and making sure that you're not doing something crazy and irresponsible is important.
Well, just to even expand upon that, I think, listen, there's probably a lot of kids who just graduated about a month ago. How did you manage being confident, like you said, but also, and I've witnessed this in you, being humble enough to know you don't know everything, right? So you're out there, you're training a team, you got to be confident. You have to be the coach and take charge and own the room, so to speak. But then how did you balance that with, I don't know everything and I need to learn? Because even myself, I'm 46, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better at what I do. How did you balance that at the time, and what things did you do? And one of the questions you can kind of throw in here is, what other continuing education or certifications did you do along that way to just make you a better coach?
Yeah, I think so I started as a 21-year-old, literally turned 21 the summer we started, and I viewed everyone as a resource. And I think that was important. I come from a health club setting, which a lot of people think is a coffin in sports performance and a coffin in the fitness career. But whether it was the trainer who had been around for 2 decades and had a full schedule, if it was the other new guy who's starting a month after me, everyone was a resource, because they all have something that they bring to the table. Even, it's very hard to do this still, but the sport coach that maybe I don't see eye to eye with their conditioning and training principles, but they've been a coach for so long, there's got to be something there that I can pull out of. So really seeing everyone as a resource and learning from them is important. And then this is something that I've learned from you, Steve, is it's listen more than you talk. And I remember sitting in a room with you and the other Parisi master trainers and being the young guy, and you literally looking at me being like, you were here for a reason, speak. And me like, no, I'm just taking it all in. And that was huge, because that was almost like getting the okay from Master Yoda to pull out my lightsaber, but had to get one Star Wars reference in there. But understanding that you have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth, and you should use them in that order. That's an adage that I don't even know who's really said that, but the book How to Win Friends and Influence People was a great resource. It's funny, like the question of like, do you have any favorite continuing education or certification courses? Read from other people outside of the fitness industry, whether it's a book like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, if it's James Clear's Atomic Habits, which is another great book on almost like behavioral change and building habits. These pieces are huge. And then getting mentors. I think right now for me, as far as continuing education certifications go, I'd rather spend time and money being with people who do it better than me, and then appreciating that people are always going to be able to do it better than me, and that there are people to learn from. I remember going down to Sparta and watching you coach in your facility and just being like, okay, like this is completely different than what I do. And then being okay with that and understanding that what you do isn't necessarily the right way, but understand and appreciate it's not the wrong way either. So everyone is going to do something their own kind of way or their own way to implement it. There's more than one way to skin a cat, but at the same time, you just need to be able to appreciate what people bring to the fitness industry rather than saying that trainer's dumb and what they do is stupid. That doesn't help anyone, and it really doesn't help you. It really closes off your mindset. But that's something that has really helped me, especially in the last decade through my 20s. In a large health club, like I said, we have like 27 personal trainers here. No one trains anyone the same way. And that healthy dialogue is huge for us to grow as individuals, for us to grow as a staff, as a team. It's important. And we see it all the time with Parisi certification, Steve. Like you hosted an FCS certification through a functional movement screen, and everyone was going through the FCS and just kind of having these different insights and different questions and how they could implement it and how they could use it. And that dialogue, yeah, it can get pretty aggressive at times, but it's not personal. And it's just someone with their own almost like internal bias with how they train, but that's valuable. Like that's an insight that you probably don't have. So appreciate it for what it is. Know that it's not personal. I think that comes from the book, The 4 Agreements, where like nothing's ever personal. It's the other person projecting a certain way. So just appreciating that and taking it in for yourself and kind of figuring out how to process it into your own systems is critical.
No, listen, I think, you have to have, it's funny, you have to have an ego when you train. You have to be a little boisterous. Yep. You have to exude confidence and take control. But in that setting, and even a setting like this, you have to learn to take a step back and, like you said, just listen. And it's difficult because, listen, you go to a clinic or a conference and it says 100 coaches. Well, all 100 coaches are pointing at the speaker saying, well, I should be up there speaking. I'm just as good as him. I'm as smart as him. And I bet you there's a lot of them that are. You and I have spoken at plenty of clinics over the last couple of years, and I go up there every time with the mindset of, I know something, and I'm just going to try to show you what I've done, and hopefully it helps you. I don't think I'm smarter than anyone else. And I remember, we had that FCS. We had Greg Cook in our building. I mean, it's a pretty prominent guy in our building, and he went after a few people. We kind of witnessed it. you and I, we sat back and chuckled a little bit because we were like, listen, you just have to learn to take things in. And I think the biggest advice that I just want to jump in here is that if you're going to go to a clinic or an educational seminar or anything, just sit back and listen and delete what you already know. Because if you form your opinion as they're talking, you're not going to absorb everything they're telling you. And you can absorb everything and then discard 90% of it and keep the 10% you like, but absorb it all. And I think that's something that I've learned over the years, because I used to go to clinics and say, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Now I want to hear everything they have to say. And like you said, in the industry, outside the industry, I think that's important for people to really, really understand, because we're our own little world. And sometimes people don't really know what our world is. And I think going outside of it, like you said, is so important. And you're very well read. I mean, I know you read a ton, and probably more than I read. Although my wife works.
I don't read. I listen. I can't, for whatever reason, if I sit down and read a book, I'm out. Z's everywhere, man. I'm just falling asleep. But audiobooks in the car, audiobooks on walks, I can do that.
I think that helps. I think that's a big help for everyone. Especially during this quarantine. So, any parting thoughts for any the coaches out there? Any advice you'd like to give over? How about this? Over the last 10 years, if you could go back in a time machine, take the DeLorean back to when you first started training, what you know now, what would you tell your younger self when you first started out? That about 10 years ago.
It's funny. What I would tell myself probably doesn't have to do with training. I'll tell you this. I would say focus, and it's kind of like what I just said, and I don't mean to like regurgitate that one, but it would, being in New England, everything's pretty close, but spend the time and go to these other places and see what they do. Go to a gym. We're very lucky to be hours from Parisi Sports Performance, 5 hours from your facility, 7 hours from New York City, 90 minutes from Montreal. I have the ability to get in a car and drive to prominent places. And I would say just network, go Casey, do yourself a favor. Every Dunkin' Donuts gift card that your clients give you, save that, go to a gym, show up with 24 donuts for their clients, their trainers, and the gym owner, and just sit there. Just sit there and learn and watch what they do and talk shop and be a meat stick and just do it. Bring them donuts and coffee and you'll have a lot of friends. That's what I would probably tell myself, because at a very young age, I was like, okay, what certificate? I felt like I had to overcompensate as a business major coming out of college in an exercise science world. I thought I had to overcompensate with every letter after my name. And I think that's the furthest from the truth. In 10 years, I think 2 people have asked me, what certifications I had, and one of those was the compliance director at the college. I had to submit our certifications to make sure we were actually able to be in the weight room. So, and the other one, I couldn't even. It was early on. I think it was just a parent who was like, "So, what's your background? Oh, you have training certifications. What's the difference?" And it wasn't even like a direct ask. It was like the one time I got to mention it. But that's probably what I would tell myself is look to spend time with people that do it really well, or that are doing it the way you want to do it, whichever way you want to look at it. That's definitely what I would tell myself.
I think that's great advice, and I'm the same way. I think you need to just talk to other people and learn from other people. And in the certifications, what they do is that's your formal education. We've gone through education ourselves. We've been to a couple seminars. I do education for VertiMax and Parisi's, and I've learned, even giving the education, I've learned from it. I've gotten better as a coach. And how lucky am I? I get to meet sometimes 10, 15, 20 new coaches every few months, and now I have relationships with coaches all over the country and internationally now. So it's been a blessing, even though that was my job.
Humble brag.
Yeah. I'll stop. But how can people hit you up? Because Casey is definitely one of the leaders in the industry up there in Vermont. How can they find you up on the gram and all that cool stuff?
Yeah, you can check me out at Coach Casey Lee on most platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Casey Lee Strength Coach on Facebook. www.coachcaseylee.com is the website where anything written or audio that I do goes. My own podcast, the 3 Things podcast, is available all over the place as well. But that website's definitely the hub for me and any education that I'm putting out or part of. Every presentation that I present at, I share the slides right afterwards. I have nothing to hide in the industry, so I'd rather share it and have it be useful for someone else.
Yeah, you're open book, and I think that's a great quality to have. A lot of people who do their education won't share anything, with anyone. And I'm the same way. If people ask me for information, I give it to them. Like, here, take it.
Nothing's new anymore. Nothing's new. Google ruined it. Google
exactly.
Looked it up. The covers for everyone.
You got it. Well, Case, I can't thank you enough. I know we've known each other forever. I'm really happy I could get you on here, and hopefully it was somewhat fun for you. Hopefully I didn't hammer you too hard with the questions.
Awesome. Steve, we could do this for hours, man.
I know. We're actually over our time.
Any chance to talk to you, man? It's a true pleasure.
Yeah, and same here. Best of luck with all the training up there. Hopefully down here we'll get going soon. But again, we really thank you for your time, and I'm sure this won't be the last time we get you on here.
Definitely, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.